What is terrorism?
People are hesitant.
Performing an act of violence against somebody else who disagrees with you. For me, it's related to authoritarianism, is it a word? And religion, and they're not very far from each other. Yes, but it's still, when I think about it, it still relates to, with me, it relates more with the cartoonish religious figures. I guess it's just more obvious. But yeah.
The truth is that we followed the events very closely when they happened, but in the meantime,
forcing others to obey you, to do things you want them to, I think.
It has a period of time where everything is very present and suddenly it disappears off the scene. So back then I used to think that it's a revolution, but I cannot say really where it went or what effects it had on the society. When I can from Greece, that it's still a lot of people ask me when I go abroad. So in Greece everything is fine. We don't hear anything more in the media. It's not.
Terrorism.
It's the same thing that happens in the Arabic countries. That there's still a lot of things happening that we fortunately can't.
I think any act of terror is an act that is intended to instill fear.
I'm not sure.
Irrational fear in the person who is sort of being perpetrated against. That also is a very sort of abstract way of seeing it. And therefore any act that is, it's usually of course an act of sabotage or act of extreme violence that is meant to inspire irrational fear in the person, I think that is an act of terrorism. But in terms of what terrorism has come to mean in recent decades, I think that it's sort of the new communism. You know, communism was seen as the one thing to fear the most, and it inspired all kinds of irrational fear all during the Cold War. And everyone was trying to fight communism as if it was some kind of horrible, monstrous thing. You know, and you have all kinds of anti-communist, a communist agenda. And to me, communism inspired the same irrational fear and was perceived as something evil and pernicious, and that it must be eradicated from the world. And I think that when communism lost this power, inspired this much fear, and all those elaborate political alliances and systems developed around combating or fighting communism, when communism lost that, I think modern states had to think of other ways of fighting something pernicious that inspires irrational fear. And that has come to be, was instrumentalized by, sort of the global movement, migration from south to north, and third world to first world, and developing to developed, and sort of the inevitable consequence of an ever-globalized world where you have populations moving around in ways you cannot totally control. And you had to give it a name, and you had to give it a face, and you had to give it a creed, or an ideology in that case, in the absence of ideology. And that has come to be religious extremism of the South, or third world countries, or developing countries. I mean, you pick which terms more en vogue. And you just slapped a name and a face to it, and it became sort of, terrorism, or a new enemy, or something that you have to fight and combat against. Because if you allow it to take root, then it's going to destroy society and the world as we know it. And the same sort of propaganda against communism. It's evil and pernicious, and if you allow it to take hold of the world will
accept the change of the rules.
End.
What I don't accept is changing the rules without.
There's a very eschatological, apocalyptic stance.
Finally, as we talk on and on, for me, democracy is exactly that. The fact that it can change everything.
Or religious extremism, or to be
but
more
having
specific,
discussed a lot already about
sort
the
of
found of reality.
Islamist.
Which is not the case of our everyday life. Actually, we make decisions without really actually consider like that.
I think it's
a luxury.
The culmination
it's a luxury,
of
and they always hope that it's a luxury for all, which is an important thing. One of the people who influenced me very much in my life was this French director who passed away very young.
Possibilities for
Antoine Vitesse. Had this wonderful slogan, élitaire pour tous, which is translated as elitist for everybody. At the moment I thought that this is a very bourgeois intellectual way to say things. But finally, that was a good idea. I mean, if you have to consider that everybody would share the high quality of things, that is an important thing. That's where democracy should go on, should go to. I mean, this is where we should tend to. So in a sense, democracy is still a luxury that we don't
Das Abschlagen des Kopfes wird durch die Medien verbreitet, inszeniert und auch in seiner möglichen Manipulation hinterfragt. Das Kopfabschlagen, eine Praxis der französischen Revolution und davor, die als Beweis galt, dass das politische System zerschlagen wurde. Wie der Körper seines Repräsentanten öffentlich durchtrennt. Der Körper des Herrschers ist der Körper des Staates. Der Körper des Staates ist der Körper seines Souveräns. Vermeintlich tyrannische Herrscher, die als verlauste, schmutzige, langbärtige, in Unterwäsche aus Erdlöchern herausgezogen werden und dann hingerichtet und tot den Medien präsentiert. Oder aber blutig zerrissen und von einer Horde wütender Männer attackiert. Die Präsentation von herabgesetzten Leibern, die mich erinnern an die im Kofferraum abgelenkten und erschossenen Leiber von Bonzen und Bankern. Strategien, Bilder, Körperpolitiken werden vom Staatsterrorismus übernommen, enteignet und oder kontextualisiert. Zerlegung von Körpern, Inszenierung von Körpern, Körper ideologischer Austragungen. Diese Körper stehen für Staaten, Systeme, Anschauungen. Die Köpfung wird heute einer radikal-islamischen Organisation zugeschrieben. IS, Islamischer Staat. Eine Organisation, die entstanden ist in den amerikanischen Gefängnissen im Irak von 2012, nachdem der Körper dieses Staates zerschlagen wurde. Die Zerlegung von Körpern, das Abtrennen des Hauptes, wird heute das medialisierte Symbol einer radikalisierten Religion. Warum? Oder wie kann das geschehen? Der Terrorismus, der symbolische oder konkrete Orte der Macht zerstört, scheint vorbei. Köpfe ohne Menschen oder aber Körper ohne Kopf oder aber der Vorgang der Köpfung. Es scheint grausam, altertümlich und passend zu unserem Bild vom Islam. Die Bilder und die maskiert durchgeführten Grausamkeiten verbinden sich. Aber wer ist maskiert? Was ist die Geschichte des Terrorismus seit dem Ersten Weltkrieg? Welche Inszenierungen der Grausamkeit wurden ergriffen, ausgeführt oder propagiert? Wie oder haben sich Ausdrucksformen der Gewalt in den letzten 100 Jahren verändert? Auf welche Geschichte verweisen Sie? Oder aber auf welche kulturellen oder politischen Systeme? Die geköpften Herrscher waren der Tribut der französischen Revolution, eine legitimierte Gewalt. Ja, oder aber Perseus auf dem Floß der Medusa, der ihren Kopf hält. Und aus ihrem Blutstropfen entsteht etwas Neues. Doch was entsteht aus den abgeschlagenen Köpfen? Welche Körper werden inszeniert und öffentlich vorgeführt? Was, wenn Perseus ein maskierter Mann mit schwarzer Kleidung ist? Was entsteht dann aus den Blutstropfen der Medusa? Giganten ideologischer Konstruktionen?
reality is produced by living it, basically. That's how reality is produced. You live it, that's it. I don't know if you produce reality, just... You walk down the street, that's real. You sit and eat, that's real. I don't know. You hit someone, that's real. So I guess that's reality.
Through perception. And perception, I think, is constructed through education. So, I mean, I'm not talking about like a formal education necessarily, but all the types of education that you get. Yeah, so I think that's how.
Dark things, not good things, hard things. The reality is very hard for me, but it's a fact. So I have to, it's not something you choose it. The reality is a destiny also. So you have to be part of the reality, how you will act in the reality, how you will react in the reality. That's me, that's you, that's everyone. Actions and their actions in the reality. In the hard reality.
Well, first of all, does reality exist anyway? I mean, I don't know what is reality. I can't answer that question. We have a perception of what is real, but how real is it? When an event, a historical event like a revolution, takes place, what is the reality? Even if you're involved in a protest or in a march or demonstration, I have access just to your immediate knowledge of your surrounding, and maybe so we rely now on the media a lot to give us that, to validate what an event, but then that it almost becomes, that media validation becomes, in people's minds, they think that's the reality, but of course it's just a filter. So.
By us, I think, we produce reality according to how we like to see it. I think that's all about when you talk about reality. It's always changing. It's always, because it is changing according to those who are living in it. So I live my own reality. Maybe my son living with me in the same house, but he's not living in my reality. He's living in his own reality. So reality is something about what you experience yourself. So we create our own reality. It's not there for us. We create it. There's some foundations for us, but we always restructure those reality to make it fit to us, what we want. It's always about running towards one of the ideas and create it as something physical, something real, something materialistic, something you can touch and you can deal with easily, with very human sense. Something you can feel, something you can buy, something you can live in. But is that really a reality? This is something very, it's another question.
Well, I mean, that's a word that was created, and it has so many different meanings by whoever's using it. So terrorism is a word that basically is a label that functions to serve the purposes whoever needs to put somebody else down. I mean, we have certainly I'm not going to deny that there isn't terrorist elements within the world today, and if one only looks at the incredible pain in Syria and Iraq and in so many other parts of the world, in Nigeria and so forth. And these are acts of barbarism. I mean, they are medieval acts that go back where it's, and I'm not, I mean, you know, this terrorism is a new word, and as I said, it's a tool that's being used for political purposes. So the word itself is irrelevant, but it does tend to, it did at one point highlight the fact that we are living in a world where
well, the first thing that comes in mind, of course,
acts
is
of barbarism are
what
being
the media says the Islamic State is.
validated.
But I don't
in a
really
way that I
agree
don't
with
think we've
that.
seen for
There's a misconception, I think, about how Western society sees terrorism. I think terrorism has a lot of faces, and one of them we are living right now here. And in terms of economic terrorism, there is surely the aspect of people, of terrorists acts all over the world, and especially now happening. But I think there's a big misconception about who is the terrorist really and who is not. Or we live on this side of the globe that we tend to focus on the wrong terrorism, and we tend to forget that we might be also terrorists on some part of the country. Globe. Yes. So there are many faces of terrorism, not only the one that the United States always want to present.
The use of violence. So I don't think that just the religious fanatics are violent. I think states can be can be terrorists. It's organized terrorism as well. It's very sad.
With the regime. So want this regime to shut down and go, and another democratic, fresh regime rules the situation. And we announce that. Okay? We have no channels, okay, but there is some channels can reach us, like Gezira, Arabiya, BBC. These channels, okay, secured, and go to Tahrir in secret and meet some people, and we announce our demands and our powers. The situation maintains the same. Okay, they till the 2nd of February, which was famous by the camel attack. If you hear about the camel attack, okay. This day, it was the 2nd of February. We was in Tahrir. Didn't go home since the 25. Many of us didn't go home from the 25th of January, and so we was in Tahrir, and I was near Tarat Harb Square, and then surprised by a group of people riding camels and horses in a very tragic historical view. I think there's no director, whatever he wants, whatever talented he was, he cannot make this view. Okay.
Of what?
Before the revolution,
I think politics is everything. So perhaps to act politically would be to act with the awareness that what one does has but I think if I define it that way, then that excludes the atmosphere of requirements. So that's not a good definition, so it's everything.
You don't do anything. You only, for me, government.
But when it comes down to
for me. So we need government.
anywhere,
To bring real facts.
My name is Platon. My name is Platon Mavromoustakos. I was born in Alexandria, Egypt in 1959, and I am a professor of theatre studies at the University of Athens. My first degree was in Athens, in law school, and then I quit to the great disappointment of my family and became a theatre studies person, and I went to Paris, where I did study.
Okay, my name is Irene.
Came back in
I am 24 years old.
And since
I
1991,
am
I'm
a
working
kindergarten
in the University
teacher, preschool teacher.
And
I
this year,
have
apart
been
my
living in
university
Athens
work,
since
I've been collaborating with several theatres in Athens, ordinary
2013.
communities in Greece.
It's my second year here, and
Okay, my name is
my
Hani
citizenship,
Temrez.
I'm half Greek
My
and half
age is
German.
32 years old. My occupation, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon in Cairo University Hospital.
Say one word.
I live in Cairo since a lot, about 32 years.
The fact that you
a summary of things. There's no
since I lived
particular.
I've grown up during the
Now?
military junta in Greece.
It's difficult now to describe in the Egyptian state, okay? Before the revolution, we can give you a describe. After the revolution now, it's a little bit hard to give the description. Before the revolution, you can call it the policy state, a state of torturing, state of aggression, state of suppression.
I'm 33 and I've been living in Cairo for 8 years. I'm Egyptian American.
In Egypt before the revolution, they may disagree with me, but in their hearts, in the inside, they will agree. Because normal people just want to live, just want to eat, just want their kids to go to school and safe. So the problem now that the people, normal find that case.
For me,
So sometimes
to describe the Egyptian state, I think is futile, but I see it as chaotic and poorly organized, based on fear and force and violence, and very patriarchal. Patriarchy and patriarchal and how it functions. I don't know. Like I have no idea what's going on behind closed doors, and I don't know that anybody that is behind closed doors actually has a full idea of what's happening. I think that there's a lot of children, a lot of
Menschen die Köpfe zu transplantieren. In spätestens 2 Jahren sollen die mit einem solchen Unterfangen verbundenen medizinischen Probleme gelöst sein. Das Projekt mit der Bezeichnung HEAD, Anastomosis Venture with Cord Fusion, kurz HEAVEN, soll nach Angaben des Wissenschaftlers vor allem Menschen helfen, die an degenerativen Erkrankungen der Muskulatur und der Nerven oder Krebs leiden. Die größten Herausforderungen bei einem solchen Eingriff sind, abgesehen von den ethischen Fragen, eine funktionierende Verbindung der beiden Rückenmarksenden zu schaffen und das Immunsystem des Körpers davon abzuhalten, den Kopf wieder abzustoßen. Nun hat Canavero verkündet, dass beide Hürden bis 2017 überwunden werden könnten. Die konkreten Pläne will der Forscher bei der Jahreskonferenz der American Academy of Neurological and Orthopedic Surgeons in Annapolis, Maryland, im kommenden Jahr vorstellen. Erste Tierversuche führte der sowjetische Chirurg Wladimir Demischow 1954 an Hunden durch. Der Transplantationspionier verpflanzte den Kopf und die Vorderbeine eines Welpen auf den Rücken eines ausgewachsenen Schäferhundes. Die bedauernswerten Geschöpfe überlebten allerdings nur wenige Tage. Ähnliche Versuche wurden auch in den USA durchgeführt. So verband Robert White von der Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio, den Kopf eines Affen mit dem Rücken eines anderen. Das Tier erlitt dadurch zwar eine hohe Querschnittslähmung, weil das Rückenmark unterbrochen blieb. Dennoch überlebte der Affe bei vollem Bewusstsein 9 Tage lang, ehe eine Immunreaktion schließlich das fremde Gewebe abstieß. Die Transplantationsmedizin hat seither bedeutende Fortschritte gemacht. Canavero glaubt daher, dass der erfolgreichen Verpflanzung eines Kopfes eigentlich nichts mehr im Wege steht. Insbesondere immunsuppressive Therapien seien mittlerweile auf einem Niveau, die einen solchen Eingriff ermöglichen würden. Zunächst müssten die Körpertemperaturen von Kopf und Spenderkörper erheblich heruntergefahren werden, um die Lebensdauer des Gewebes ohne Sauerstoffzufuhr zu verlängern. Im nächsten Schritt werden die größeren Blutgefäße durchtrennt. Jene des Kopfes müssten dann mit den Gefäßen des Körpers mittels dünner Schläuche verbunden werden. Schließlich erfolgt die Durchtrennung des jeweiligen Rückenmarks. Ein sauberer Schnitt sei dabei, laut Canavero, von entscheidender Bedeutung. Bei der Verbindung der Rückenmarksfasern setzen die Forscher auf Polyethylglykol, das heute vor allem in der Kosmetikindustrie Verwendung findet. Die Substanz soll die Chance beträchtlich erhöhen, dass die Nervenenden eine funktionsfähige Verbindung eingehen. Versuche deutscher Forscher mit Ratten und Mäusen haben im Vorjahr bewiesen, dass die Methode zumindest teilweise funktioniert. Abschließend werden Muskulatur und Gefäße wieder zusammengefügt. Um Bewegungen während des Heilungsprozesses zu verhindern, soll der Patient 3 bis 4 Wochen im Koma bleiben. Währenddessen implantierte Elektroden das Rückenmark stimulieren. Die Forscher glauben, dass dies die Nervenverbindungen zusätzlich kräftigen könnte. Richard Borgens, Direktor des Paralyse-Forschungszentrums an der Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, weist die Vorstellung einer baldigen, erfolgreichen Kopfverpflanzung weit von sich. Es gibt keine Beweise dafür, dass eine Verbindung von Rückenmark und Gehirn nach einer Kopftransplantation oder motorischen Funktionen führt, erklärt er in New Scientist. Andere Mediziner wollten sich zu dem Thema gar nicht erst äußern. An Interessierten dürfte es nicht mangeln. Laut Canavero hätten sich bereits zahlreiche Freiwillige gemeldet, die auf einen neuen Körper erpicht sind. Ob es tatsächlich so weit kommen wird, hängt allerdings nicht allein von der medizinischen Machbarkeit ab. Der ethische Aspekt eines solchen
The most, I think, important evolution of the past years is that big parties which were governing the country in the post-dictatorship period have collapsed. This happened especially with PASOK, which was a socialist, we can call it social democratic in the general sense, party which now has collapsed. There is, among people doing research, for elections and so on, there is the idea that PASOK could not make it to the next parliament. The party that was governing until recently the country will go down, is now around 4%, etc. It's very, very low, 4 or 5%. It's completely collapsed. On the other side, something similar, but not to that extent, is happening also with New Democracy.
Well, there is obviously the standard definition of terrorism.
Also going down as
and all the other forms of tyranny, including emotional tyranny, when people attempt to make you feel something that you're not supposed to be feeling.
If it happens, which is very probable that it will happen.
Intellectual tyranny, where people force certain ideas on you. All of these forms of tyranny are also forms of terrorism. And
of course, one of the
armed people
important phenomena of the last years is the apparition of this Nazi party.
I don't know, I can't define terrorism because it's extremely hard to define terrorism. All these notions are, are very hard to define because they're changing notions. I mean, the liberation movement in France, for example, they were considered terrorists by the Germans, and the Algerians were considered terrorists by the French, and so it really depends on who is looking and in what context they're looking, and what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians is considered terrorism by the Arabs, but not by the rest of the world, and vice versa. So it's not something that you can really identify or define in the absolute, like what they're trying to make us believe. The anarchists in France were terrorists in some sense, but they weren't really. The Red Brigade in Italy, they were terrorists, but they weren't. It's a very subtle and multi-layered process or reflection, and you can't just define it in a sentence and say, yeah, of course, killing innocent people anytime, anywhere is condemnable, but again, wars kill a lot of people too, and it is very hard to define terrorism, and I think it's trying to simplify things in order to create sort of a conflict between different parts of the world. It's more of a political thing rather than anything else. Simplifying, so you get people behind something, and you install fear in them, and you want them to follow what comes next, basically. So that's what's been happening in the world over the last few decades. Is you convince them that terrorism is something that is material and that you can define. It's like love or hate or anger. You can define, you can say that anger is, but you can't really define these terms. Terrorism is the same, and but trying to package it, to make people believe that it is real and simple, and therefore, instill fear in them, and then therefore push them into the direction that you want to push them for to serve political and strategic purposes. So yeah, I wouldn't know how to define terrorism. I wouldn't want to see anyone blown up or killed, but I can't define terrorism.